there was one boy in particular who was clearly very uncomfortable being a boy, but he was absolutely forced to be a boy. And these days, I imagine, he might have felt free to tell his parents and his teachers that he did not feel comfortable in his own skin. Had we been more tolerant and liberal way back in the 70s, he would probably have been a lot happier had he been able to wear a skirt. Is there any reason why he shouldn't have been able to wear a skirt?
You're using very positive words like tolerant and liberal as though that would be a really good thing.
Aren't they?
But, well, in this particular case, I just think it's quite harmful to children to sort of confuse them or to encourage their own confusion.
But they are confused. Some children are confused.
Yes, but I think that we need to help them with that confusion, not by affirming it, because we're kind of teaching them a lie, because if they are a boy, they really are a boy. And we don't want to have any sort of stereotype, and we don't want to say because you're a boy you have to do these things.
But that's you forcing children who have been born in the wrong body into conforming to something that was a mistake. I mean, I don't know if you've ever come across...
You're using language that they're born into the wrong body as though that's an established scientific fact. No, I don't. I think you'll find it's not. It's one of the least debated things of all the sort of social changes that have happened. It's hardly been debated. It's hardly kind of understood psychologically what's happening.
Have you ever talked to a transgender person?
Yes.
Right. Me too. I mean, I've talked to a number of different transgender people, and the one thing that they say consistently is that they knew from the very earliest age that they'd been born into the wrong body. Some come from very conservative backgrounds where they were forced to continue in the wrong identity. Some came from more liberal backgrounds. But the one thing that's consistent between both is that they knew that they were in the wrong body. It was only a question of how long it took them to find the right path for them, which I'd have thought as a man of God, you would want people to be happy if they were doing no one any harm.
Yeah. It's just your premise is that there is such a thing as the wrong body. And when you say it like that, of course, you wouldn't want anyone to be born in the wrong body. But I don't think God makes mistakes like that. And I don't think actually, even scientifically, it's been at all proven that it's helpful for people, and especially young children, to even think about transitioning.
Why do you think God doesn't make mistakes? I can think of lots of people born with horrendous physical mistakes. So if God creates somebody with a hair lip, that's not a mistake. He wants the person to live with a hair lip for the rest of his life.
No, that's a fair point. And maybe that phrase wasn't the best phrase that I could have used. I take your point on that. But in terms of gender, if we are born as a boy, I think we should embrace being a boy. And if we're born as a girl, we should embrace being a girl.
Okay, so if God can make a mistake giving someone a hair lip, why can God not make a mistake putting someone in the wrong body?
Yes, but if someone has a hair lip or some other medical condition, you try and think about what's the presenting problem and what do we need to try and do to cure that. And I think in the case of young children who are confused about their gender, the way we try and deal with that is sure, say as part of the fall is that this, the bodies are not working correctly, but we don't say so. We just need to embrace it. I think it's almost child abuse. I think it's
oh come on child
affirm them in the wrong gender.
Child abuse. Come on, you can't say it's child abuse. Child abuse is a vile form of sexual or physical assault on a child. It's quite different from if your child says, I want to wear a skirt, saying, all right, son, you can wear a skirt. Because
it was almost child abuse. And anyway, I think...
I don't think you can have almost child abuse. It's either child abuse or not child abuse.
I think it's a terrible thing to actually encourage a young child to embrace a gender that's not biologically theirs. I think it creates all kinds of confusion. And across the country, this is not an established fact. You're saying it as though we've all established, and the whole country and culture have agreed it's possible to be born in the wrong body.
No, clearly not, because you don't agree with that. But your predecessors, if somebody had been born with a hair lip, would have thought it was the mark of Satan, because that's what people used to think if there were physical abnormalities. So we have come a long way. I suspect we're just at the cusp of understanding this particular facet of human sexuality.
Yeah, but I mean, a hair lip is what one might call a defect, and you wouldn't in your ideology, you would just think it's natural, and I just don't think it's good and right and helpful to do what you're suggesting.
All right.
And I don't think it's even been agreed across the country or the culture.
Okay.
Not everyone agrees with what you're saying.
I'm joined on the line now by a caller, Claire, who picked up the phone and gave us a ring. Claire, hello. Did you hear that interview?
Yeah, and actually it's really, really upset me because of the situation we're going through. My son, he's now 9. From the age of 3, he's been wearing dresses at nursery and places, and people said, oh, it's just kids, experimenting and having fun in play, and that's fine, and we accepted that. And then he's always been drawn to girls' uniform or clothes, and we've been trying to tell him at school, that's he has to wear what the school says. And he's just literally in the last month had the courage to tell school that he's a girl, but he refuses to get change in the boys' changing room for PE because he says he's a girl. He's pleaded with me to make him a machine to turn him into a girl. He's threatened to cut his willy off to be a girl.
We saw.
So, is it child abuse that I let him wear a skirt, or let him feel the way that he is, that he's in the wrong body? And we haven't tried to encourage it. Sort of always wanted a girl. We're torn on what to do for the best, and a gender-neutral uniform would probably help a little bit in this situation.
Is the school supportive of him?
Yeah, I mean, he has autism, so apparently it can be common that there are gender identity issues. We're just learning, at the moment, and they have a school psychologist, and they are starting to work with him. They've made a gender-neutral changing room. They've taken a label off one of their spare rooms, but he refuses to use that still at the moment because he says he's a girl. But obviously that's as far as they can go at the moment, and we're supporting them on that. And for World Book Day, he went as the boy in a dress by David Walliams' character, and he was so happy that day because he got to be in the dress, and his body language changed. They said it's the most relaxed they've seen him. And it's, I'm a tomboy. He doesn't see me in dresses. He doesn't see me in makeup. He's not, it's natural. And his whole body language changes when he puts a dress on.
Mm.
So, I hate to feel like, it's this horrible sort of thing to think, am I now abusing him? And it's not, because the other option is far worse.
I have to tell you, I think what my last guest said was both offensive and cruel. And I deeply, deeply disagreed with what he said. And I think it's one of the problems with people who take guidance from what they imagine God is saying to them. Because I come from a religious background, and I know that the best people I've met who are religious believe that what God wants is for you to be kind. That's what God wants. And kindness is an underrated virtue. And if your child is made happy by doing something that hurts no one at all, but it just allows him to give expression to who he is, you should be encouraging him.
And it's a piece of material at the end of the day. I mean, how is that hurting anybody?
Well, it's not hurting anybody. But of course, the biblical justification for the kind of views that Graham holds is the Old Testament. And what the Old Testament said was that to wear mixed fabrics is a terrible sin as well. And of course, nobody pays any attention to the mixed fabrics rule. Now, do they? The idea that if you mix linen and cotton, that's evil. I mean, people just laugh at that as a notion.
And in other countries and cultures, say, maybe not so often, but, you've got kilts in Scotland and all sorts. But it's the fact he's so adamant now that he's in the wrong body. And he's asking me, why did I make him a boy, Mummy? It is so sad for an 8-9-year-old to be asking that question. What am I to you? And I wasn't sure. And he said, and I finally picked up on what he meant. And I said, what, you mean my son? And he kept shaking his head. And I went, my daughter? And he suddenly smiled. And he's adamant he is not a boy. And I haven't encouraged it in the sense of wanted him to be a girl, but I'm can't stop him thinking that. And I think for his mental health, if I started blocking that, that would cause whole more issues.
You're listening to your child. That's what you're doing. You're listening to your child, and you're listening to what makes your child happy. How would it serve your child, your family, society, for you to force him to dress in a way that makes him miserable?
Yeah, I mean,
what's the purpose?
And it's not to do with sexuality, because at the moment he has no issue when the school are trying to explain to him that there's safeguarding reasons why he can't change in the girls' changing room, and I support them on that. And he doesn't understand dangers regarding that sense yet. And also, maybe when he goes to like public swimming pools, they have gender-neutral changing rooms, so he's used to boys and girls and men and women in the same. But they have cubicles,
of course,
but they are in the same change rooms, because a lot of modern swimming pools have that now. So he doesn't get the whole distinction probably between why there's a difference between boys and girls.
The problem
and it's hard to explain.
The problem, of course, with a lot of people who get angry about this and insist that you should control what your child does, even if it makes him miserable, is that they always see it through a prism of sex, because I think that's what a lot of the right-wing fundamentalists are absolutely obsessed with. They're obsessed with sex, and the rest of us tend not to be, and we talk about social justice, and they always talk about sex. So for them, I mean, it was interesting that Graham instantly saw this through some kind of sexual prism, where it was about abuse, and I just think it's smutty and it's distasteful. Have you heard of a charity called? Sorry, can I just say, have you heard of a charity called Mermaids?
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of issues with certain opinions on them at the moment, but I mean, our paediatrician is also referring us to them, so we're on a referral at the moment.
I sat beside the head of Mermaids at an event. I thought she's a wonderful, inspiring woman, and she told me the story of her daughter. Her daughter was very much like your son. From the earliest ages, had talked about how she was in the wrong body, has transformed since she's allowed to be in the right body, and is now a very well-adjusted young woman who is happy. I think one of the ages, as I understand it, is when the children come up towards puberty. They don't want to develop in the wrong body, so they're given help not to do so until they're of an age when they can take a decision themselves, when they can, or a legal age.
I mean, because he's very sees things in black and white, because he's got the autism complication as well. So we're trying to work with him at the moment to see if he thinks he has to be a girl to be able to wear a dress, and tell him there's a middle ground where he might be happy to be a boy that wears a dress, or whether he really does think he's in the wrong body. That's what we're kind of working with him at the moment to figure out. But the fact is, I mean, we went to the doctors about something totally different last week, and you know when you check in and you have the computers and it says male or female, and he got so angry that I had to press male for him. He said, I'm not male, I'm a girl. And I said, well, unfortunately, Jack, that will be on your records and they won't be able to change that. But he so adamant that it's not, the male, he's not male.
Claire, can I just say, you sound like you're a wonderful mum, and you sound like you're doing the best thing possible, which is to listen to your wee boy. And I wish you lots of good luck. And I would like to hear how this unfolds, because he sounds like he's a tough wee cookie, and he's expressing himself.
I mean, he's moved schools. He's been excluded from a couple of schools, and now he's in an autism school. Yeah. And I think he's probably happy that he's finally being listened to, which is why he could tell them that he's a girl, as far as he's concerned, because he couldn't say that anywhere else because he was never listened to.
More listening, less ranting. I think that's what society needs in general. Claire, it's good to talk to you, and thank you so much for telling us this story about your wee boy. It puts everything, I think, in context.